Hey guys, Camden here, back for another week of insights from inside of the Steelman tribe, passing on some of those lessons so you guys can learn more about what it's like inside that tribe. And even if you're not ready to join just yet, you can still learn something and apply it inside of your life and get some wins going. So we had a conversation a couple of weeks ago talking about this discipline and persistence. And these are both really important skills. But I think there's an interesting conversation here of which one's more important. And, when we talk about skill development and you're saying which one is more important than the other, there is the obvious kind of, smart ass, frankly, answer of like, oh, well, you need both. Of course, you do need both. But I think by examining the two of them individually, you can get a better picture of what each one means for your performance in the long run and your productivity and how big of an impact you can make. And then by understanding how they work individually, then, hey, if you develop both of them, then you're even in a better spot there. Yeah, like I said, I think it's a really interesting thing of, okay, if you only had to apply or develop one of these skills, if you had to be hyper disciplined or hyper persistent, then which one would be more effective? And I think it's a really, really common thing for us to go back to. These are words I think we kind of lump in together, when it comes to hitting our goals, comes to driving towards making impact, following our purpose, those kind of things. We know that we need to be persistent with it. We know that we need to be disciplined in order to reach those goals. What exactly do those two different pieces look like? So first, I want to talk about the discipline side of things. So if you have our little graph right here. So discipline is the best way I think to put it. Discipline is your rate of work. It's your work rate, right? How much are you actually going to be getting done on a daily basis? What is that output rate? So if I'm hyper disciplined and I have a really good output rate per day, picture days going along this x-axis right here, then of course I am going to have great growth rate. Up to the right? Really good stuff there. Of course, I am being very disciplined. I'm going to get a lot done, and therefore, because I'm waking up early, getting all the extra work done, staying late, making sure I dot my I's, cross my T's, all those kind of things there, I am going to hit that goal a lot faster, right? Now, the interesting thing to me here, though, is discipline is very important, but without persistence, you're left with a short runway right there. So we start thinking about persistence in example B right here. The way I like to put persistence is we're not increasing at the same rate. I'm not getting as much done per day, but I am not quitting. And that's a really important piece there. So even though we're not going at that same rate, and there goes my chalk, always going to break one. We do still hit that same goal down the road, right? Don't break out your rulers or protractors or anything to check my math on this, right? But here's the thing. As we are persistent, even though we're getting less done every day, we are hitting it every single day. And when we hit a barrier, we are not stopping. And I think that's a really big difference here. So when I think about interruptions when it comes to performance, right? In terms of discipline is a very internal thing, right? That rate of growth that is determined on a daily basis is based on what you are going to do with those distractions. How you handle those distractions, how you handle complacency, how you handle interruptions, things falling short, stuff like that. So as we think about discipline in that internal aspect, it is this internal fight that's always going of, hey, are you going to get distracted? Are you going to be lazy today? Or are you going to keep working at that really high work rate that we talked about? Now, when it comes to persistency, I think is more about the external. Persistency is like no matter what's going on around us, we are going to keep pushing forward. And it's not just I'm going to do this thing today, but I'm going to keep doing this thing until it's done. I'm going to keep doing this thing till I'm done, whichever one happens first, right? But by zooming out and having that more external picture, it helps you keep pushing forward through all the BS and all the crud that comes with trying to fulfill your purpose, comes with trying to grow your business, be successful, any of those things there. So you have to recognize that the external piece is really important because there are going to be interruptions. You could be really, really disciplined with your work, but if you're not able to persist your way through challenges and roadblocks, then that increased work rate doesn't really do that much good for you, right? If you picture these two examples right here, I'm working really, really hard right here, and then boom, right there, even though I've got all this stuff done, I've been super disciplined, I've been working 100-hour weeks, all this kind of stuff. Then I go to my first investor meeting and they're like, God, that's a terrible idea. Discipline is my ability to go back to work. Persistence is, am I going to go back to work on the same thing? Because what happens a lot of the time is people who can be really disciplined, if they're not persisting through those challenges, they can take that skill of discipline, which is a really, really freaking good skill, and they can apply it in all sorts of other areas. And so they wind up almost over pivoting, working in all these different areas, trying to make things move, when in reality, sometimes you need to persist, right? The world doesn't work on our time frame. And so that persistence aspect is really important, because even if you have that wonderful, wonderful idea, things might not come to fruition right away, and you might have to keep chipping away at things. And being hyper disciplined is really useful, but the flaw comes when we start thinking that 100-hour work week, to use that example, that 100-hour work week is going to then drive us to automatically reaching our goals. It doesn't. It is completely independent of those. That discipline is your internal battle. The persistence has to do more with those external and actually hitting those goals there. So it's important to understand that difference in the internal and the external. But like I said, of course, hey, what is the right answer here, even though it's kind of the smart ass answer, is we do want both. We want discipline and persistence. We want to have a long runway, increase our x-axis there. We also want to have a high growth rate. So idealized version here is really simple. We have, once again, our increased growth or increased runway right there. And then I'm going to go into my other drawing on this one. But get my arrows on the end there. Shout out to the math teachers who taught me that. I don't remember what it's for, though. So you can see drawing C and drawing B there. But we have this increased runway, and we have this increased work rate because of we are highly disciplined. And so we're going to go through and get a lot more done. Our success is going to be that much greater, right? Now, is that realistic? No, not at all. And you might say, well, no, I could be hyper-disciplined and I could be very persistent. Yes, you can. But look at that graph. Is that very realistic there? No, of course not. That's like the first business plan that anyone's ever wrote. Or a lot of those things you go take to an investor and you go, look, if I get this, I'm getting 10 sales this month. I'll get 40 next month, and I'll get 100 the month out of that, and 1,000. And then look, and we're just going to make all this money. So therefore, my company is worth $5 billion. I think I was watching Shark Night the other day with my wife, and Shark Week. No, gosh, love Shark Week, but I'm talking about Shark Tank. There we go. Shark Tank. Big fan of Shark Week, though. Just put that out there. But we were watching Shark Tank the other day, and they go and they're asking for some crazy amount of money, and Mark Cuban is like, "I'll give you $50,000 for 33% of your company." So $150,000 valuation, and they're over there. Well, we are going to do I think they said $50 million of sales over the next 5 years. That's just doing this. All you did was draw a graph, right? And you can do the same thing with your kind of performance. Look and say, look, if I'm disciplined and I'm persistent and I can keep going on this and I hit all these things, I'm going to go like that. But in reality, we know it's not the case. There's going to be interruptions. There's always going to be things that go wrong along the way there. So you have to recognize that that's not a realistic picture to paint for yourself. So the last graphic I wanted to go through on this is what I would consider a much more realistic picture here. So what it really looks like when it comes to discipline and persistence, discipline is that work rate, right? So we're going to start off just like graph A. We're going to start off with this great work rate here. Start off like that. Wonderful, we're moving forward, we're making progress. Then what happens is we go to that first pitch and they go, God, this is a terrible idea. You think people want to buy this? Oh God, another app or whatever it is, right? So we go through and there's an interruption there. And so what happens if you are not persistent is sometimes, hey, we quit on what we're doing. Now, if we are persistent with it, instead what we do is we keep moving forward on a slower growth rate. And we go, hey, I don't really know what's going on right now. I can keep pushing through this. I'm figuring it out. But you're not going to have that same growth rate. And also, just to go back, this is kind of the assumption on these graphs that your ability to go up the y-axis is based on your discipline. That's really true. Also, a lot of times inside of business, there are things that are outside of your control. So even if you are very disciplined, you're not necessarily going to be moving forward being more successful. But anyway, so you're persisting through that downtime. You're not making all that progress. But because you persist through, you keep moving forward. You keep learning, you keep growing, you keep solving new problems, and then eventually you're ready. You know what? I think I'm ready to go back to that, go dive back in and start really hitting things. So we get another period of hyper discipline, and there we start making all this progress. Then you know what? We plateau again. But the thing is, because And one more shoot up there at the end. Because we are being persistent, because we're pushing through over and over and over again, it doesn't really matter our growth rate at the end of the day, because we are going to keep going in perpetuity, right? Goes back to example B here. Even if I'm not growing that fast, if I am growing every single day, that 1% improvement makes a huge impact in the bottom line in that big picture, right? But if we're disciplined and we push ourselves, and then things fall apart and we don't keep pushing in that same area, you wind up, like I said, you over pivot. You could be somebody who was really busy, was very productive in this short area of time there, but then you went, it's not for me. You went on to the next thing. And there's plenty of people like that, to each their own. I can say I don't know if I've met somebody who has that kind of personality who is not, who is very successful, because what happens is they quit their projects a little bit too early. We talk about bush fever. Go check out on our YouTube page my video on bush fever, talking about that problem solving fever inside of entrepreneurship. But this thing that I talk about inside of that, and talking about hunting that big guy up there, pronghorn up in Wyoming, is this funny thing of, it's like, well, where are the pronghorn? Well, they're always over the next hill. Now, do I want to persist and keep going and keep going and keep going forever because I think they're over the next hill? No, but there's a chance they're over that next hill, so it's worth poking your head over at least a few of those hills, spend a little bit of extra energy to keep pushing out, right? So we have to recognize that there are going to be setbacks, but the solution to that setback might be just on the other side of the hill, right? We have to make sure that we're pushing forward, trying to find those solutions there. Because if we don't, then we're going to fall short every single time. Persistence guarantees that you will hit that goal eventually. Discipline determines how fast you're going to hit that goal. And that is a really big piece there. And one other aspect I want to throw in before I wrap things up is one of my favorite books is Grit by Angela Duckworth, talking about where do high performers come from. And the two factors she talks about are passion and perseverance, right? Perseverance, persistence, same. And that passion is another key piece there, because it is that you are actually enjoying the thing you're doing. It's something that you want to do, because fighting through those plateaus, and hey, I'll be realistic, it's not usually like that. We're probably down here and we're up and we're down and we're up and we're down and we're up. That's a more realistic path to success right there. And it's actually going to take a lot longer, and it's much less exciting and up and down than that. Probably there's going to be a lot of plateaus. But the reality is, if we're going to push through all that crap there, guess what? I have to be persistent. I have to be willing to push through it. I have to be able to see the long game. And also, you got to enjoy what you're doing if you are going to keep pushing through. So that's the secret third skill to this, the discipline, persistence, and passion. Do something that you enjoy. And that's why when we talk about tribe and purpose, understanding your purpose and pursuing that purpose is so important, because that does give you that fuel, right? I'm passionate about the things that I do when I'm trying to go out and fulfill my purpose. There are things that give me energy. And because I'm passionate about it, I can keep pushing through all the crap, all those ups and downs, and knowing that eventually I'm going to reach your point that I want to get to. So it's important to understand that passion, persistence, and discipline, I'll throw all three of them in there together, are all different skills that we can foster. And I would even say that like passion is a skill, because I think that when you cut passion out of your life, you have trouble building it back up. People who put passion to everything, it's one of those things, like we talk about the red truck syndrome, right? When you buy the new red truck, you see red trucks everywhere. When you're looking for passion, you find passion everywhere, right? There's a skill, there's a muscle memory that comes to being passionate about your life and the things that you're doing. So when you think about those three skills, you pile those together, that is that key to long-term success. You need to be disciplined, you need to be persistent, you need to be passionate about what you're doing. But to not play the smart-ass answer of, okay, well, you need all three. If I was going to pick one, persistence. Persistence over discipline, because even if you aren't going to get that much done today, I'd rather you string together a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, or your whole life of working towards that goal than to have just one sprint where you're trying to get it all done. And that's also the key, before I put my second drawing over the top there. But when we do have those highly disciplined stretches there, that's the sprints that we talk about. And I think that's where, as leaders for our team and, leading yourself, there is an important aspect of recognizing, okay, hey, I'm in a sprint. I'm going to be hyper disciplined for this month. I'm going to work 100-hour weeks, whatever it is. I'm going to get all this stuff done. Then you also should recognize, whoo, that's a lot of freaking work. If I want to sustain myself and I want to be persistent throughout this entire journey, then I probably need to zoom out, slow things down a little bit, give into some distractions every now and then, spend more time with the family, whatever that thing is, right? So it's important to recognize that these are different skills. You want to recognize when you can apply them in these different circumstances. The sprints are when you need that really heavy discipline, when you got a deadline coming up, you need to get something done, need to hit a sales number by a certain date, whatever it is, right? But without that persistence, that discipline just falls flat because you're going to quit and you're going to go be disciplined. You're going to get a lot done. You're going to get it done on a different project though. And you're going to have a whole bunch of different stacks of things you've been working on that you put a bunch of work into that don't pile up into anything. Whereas if you are persistent, even if you don't have that great work rate, by going and going and going, you're going to build that pile up, and that's going to be something you can be proud of. So even though I would say you need persistence, you need discipline, and you need passion, like I said, if I was picking one, I would say persistence. And actually, thinking live on this, would I go persistence over passion? I think I go passion over persistence even, because if you don't give a shit, what are you going to do? Why would you persist? I think they also do kind of go hand in hand in that sense, which is a bit of a cop-out answer. If I had to pick one, I would say passion over that, because by being passionate about something, I think that's going to pull you back towards it over and over again and help you to persist. But yeah, that's a bit of a cop-out answer. Maybe I'll do another video on passion and persistence and how those play into each other. But at the end of the day, the most important thing is recognizing that all of these are different skills. You can develop all of them, but it's also important to recognize which ones are more important, which ones do you want to develop first, and when do you want to apply each of those different skills. Apply that discipline during a sprint, but that persistence, that's an ongoing thing to help you fight those external battles when those interruptions and those roadblocks come to you and your business. So I hope this is helpful. If you guys learned something, maybe drop it down in the comments below and let me know what you learned. If you want to see a specific topic in these videos, you can drop it down in the comments as well, ask a question or anything like that. I'll be happy to answer in one of my next videos. But if you learned something, go to 10xyourteam.net. Check out the Steel Men Tribe, book your interview with Otis, see if you're a good fit for us and if we're a good fit for you, and come join me and the rest of the members of Steel Men, and as well as our sub-tribes, Steel Dads and Hard Chargers, because we're having a lot of fun, we're learning a lot, and we're making a big impact helping each other along the way, leading with passion and empathy and strength. And so go join us at Steel Men Tribe and do that at 10xyourteam.net, and I'll see you next week.